I, a 32-year-old woman, have been married to my husband Ryan, who is 35 years old, for 4 years now. My background is quite different from Ryan's. I come from a broken family where my mother struggled with addiction, and my father had to care for me and my sister. Unfortunately, my sister chose to live with our mom and also became addicted, leaving me with a sense of isolation. In contrast, Ryan's family is a tight-knit and extensive clan. He has a brother, 3 sisters, numerous uncles and aunts, all of whom are incredibly close. They celebrate Christmas together every year, which is a heartwarming experience. I'm truly grateful not only for Ryan, but also for his family. Ryan and his brother Cole don't always see eye to eye, with some remnants of sibling rivalry, though they generally get along. Their fundamental difference lies in their worldviews. Ryan, coming from a big family, has always wanted to have a family of his own, a sentiment I share. I've never experienced the joys of a large, supportive family and the constant activity in the household. On the other hand, Cole vehemently opposes having children. He and his wife, Ruth, refuse to have kids or even be around them, which has become a major point of contention between Ryan and Cole. Things took a turn for the worse when I became pregnant. While everyone in the family was ecstatic and in celebratory spirits, Ruth and Cole acted as though a great tragedy had befallen me. Their comments were hurtful, suggesting I should plan a farewell party instead of a baby shower because I'd be saying goodbye to my life. They also made insensitive remarks about how I'd become fat and ugly for the rest of my life. Ryan attempted to intervene, but they remained stubborn, so we decided to limit contact with them. Fortunately, Ryan's sisters supported our decision, as they were also fed up with Cole and Ruth's behavior. All 3 of them had kids of their own, and Cole and Ruth were never willing to assist, even in emergencies. My pregnancy was challenging, especially as we were expecting twins, and I battled severe nausea and debilitating swelling in my feet by the end of the 2nd trimester. I used to struggle after walking just 20 meters, gasping for breath. Throughout this challenging period, Ryan had been my rock, offering unwavering support. His sister, Allison, also came to our aid. Among Ryan's 3 sisters, 2 resided in other states. However, Allison, the eldest, lived in the same city as us, and her assistance was a true blessing. Allison herself had a 3-year-old daughter named Sarah, who was an absolute sweetheart. Sarah adored spending time with both Ryan and me and never missed an opportunity to help with babysitting. When my twins were born, our entire family came to celebrate the joyous occasion. However, Cole and Ruth, Ryan's brother and sister-in-law, were notably absent. Despite the help from the rest of the family, managing 2 infants was quite a challenge, but having the support of my family made things more manageable. Then, one night, at 11 p.m., I received a call from Child Protective Services, CPS, informing us that both Ryan and I were required to immediately go to a specific address. I explained that I had twins and at least one parent needed to stay with them. CPS insisted that I come while leaving Ryan with the children, as they had received a report of an unattended child alone in a house a few streets away, and that house belonged to Cole. My mind raced with a million thoughts as I made my way there. Initially, I assumed it was a mistake. I even considered the possibility that one of the 2 had a secret child, but it seemed highly unlikely. Upon arriving at the house, I saw several officers present and a terrified, sobbing Sarah. She was crying so hard that it seemed her lungs might burst. Without hesitation, I rushed to her and embraced her tightly as she clung to me. Sarah's emotional state shocked me. Allison was nowhere to be found, and the CPS representatives began asking me how I knew Zara and if I was aware of her mother's whereabouts. I explained that she was my sister-in-law's daughter, and I was often the one to babysit her in case of emergencies. It left me bewildered as to why Sarah was in this situation. They requested that I call Allison, but she was not answering her phone. Additionally, they inquired with the person who had informed them about what he had witnessed. He explained that he had witnessed a tall woman with short brown hair driving up with Sarah a few hours earlier. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Colin and Ruth, were present in the house at that time. According to the witness, he saw them engage in a heated argument for a while, after which Allison left the house in tears. Within an hour and a half, both Colin and Ruth left the house with bags and everything they needed. When the witness inquired about Sarah's well-being, they dismissively told him to mind his own business. This incident occurred around 8 p.m. The witness waited for their return, but when they didn't come back, he decided to call CPS. I was livid. It felt like steam was coming out of my ears. I couldn't believe the audacity and insensitivity of Colin and Ruth. I was also upset with Allison. Why hadn't she called me? Why did she have to leave Sarah with those two irresponsible individuals for such a long time? My anger led me to file a complaint with the police against Colin and Ruth. I didn't care about the consequences. All that mattered was Sarah's safety. When I returned home with Sarah from the police station and shared the details with Ryan, he disagreed with my decision. He insisted that, regardless of their actions, Colin and Ruth were still family, and we didn't know their reasoning behind their behavior. Now, I'm starting to question whether he might be right. I don't have the full story, and my decision to file a complaint might have serious consequences. Despite Sarah's safety, I'm doubting my judgment. Was I too hasty in going to the police without knowing the complete truth? Eventually, we managed to reach Allison. CPS had also contacted her, informing her that Sarah was with them. Allison explained that her husband, Mark, had met with a severe accident, and she had to rush to the hospital. In this emergency, she had contacted Colin and Ruth, asking them to take care of Sarah for just one night. She had promised to collect her the next morning. Allison had even packed Sarah's food, and Sarah, being a quiet and undemanding child, wouldn't have caused them much trouble. All these arrangements were made through texts and calls before she dropped Sarah off at their place. Allison didn't want to burden us because she knew we were already dealing with a lot. When she left Sarah with them, they began berating her, claiming they were child-free and had no time for such responsibilities. Allison pleaded with them because Mark was in critical condition, and she couldn't take Sarah to the hospital with her. Reluctantly, Colin and Ruth agreed. After that, Allison had no idea what happened. She called them at 10 p.m., and they assured her that Sarah was fine. It was only when CPS called her that she realized they had left Sarah alone and gone on a vacation. She was sobbing uncontrollably, mentioning that now that Mark was out of danger, she faced the risk of losing her child. Ryan drove her back from the hospital, and we managed to put both her and Sarah to sleep. Ryan's anger was palpable, and it was the angriest I had ever seen him. He made numerous calls to Cole, at least 20 or more times, but it all went straight to voicemail. My disdain for people had reached a new low, and Colin and Ruth were the ones responsible for setting this new standard. It was indeed a harrowing day. Cole and Ruth eventually returned home. They had been summoned for questioning, and they were furious with me for reporting them when, in their opinion, it was none of my business. I firmly told them to back off, emphasizing that their child-free status should not take precedence over helping the family in times of such distress. Their child-free choice should not outweigh the safety and well-being of a 3-year-old child. I stressed that anything could have happened to Sarah while she was left alone in a house that was not child-proofed. I urged them to reconsider their priorities. Fortunately, the police officer understood Allison's situation, and although Cole and Ruth were let off with a warning, they had to pay a hefty fine. Currently, we are not on speaking terms, and I couldn't be happier. It has been a month since Mark's accident and the entire ordeal. He is getting discharged today. Sarah had been mostly living with us during this time, and she caused no trouble at all. Allison is understandably exhausted, so Ryan will be going to assist her. One of Ryan's other sisters has also come over to lend a helping hand. This has undoubtedly been a tough period for the family, but we made it through. Everyone, including my mother-in-law and father-in-law, has distanced themselves from Cole and Ruth. To be honest, they deserve it. I am simply relieved that the nightmare is over. Regardless of what happened, Sarah is Allison's responsibility, and she should not expect others to make exceptions for her. She is the parent, and she needs to be prepared. I completely understand that some people choose to be child-free, But sometimes you do things for others even if it makes you uncomfortable or annoyed. That's how relationships are built and maintained. It's disheartening to see how selfish they have been. You're definitely not the one at fault here. Neither your brother-in-law nor your mother-in-law have acted like rational and responsible adults, and they had this coming. I'm relieved that nothing happened to Sarah, and I feel deeply sorry for Allison. You absolutely did the right thing, OP. I live in a large apartment complex. One day, as I was heading out with my dog, I needed to take the elevator down. My dog is 8 years old and incredibly well behaved. She doesn't bark at anyone and has a calm demeanor. She only approaches strangers in public when they signal for her to come to them. She's a medium-sized dog, and I can't imagine anyone finding her intimidating. She is always on a leash when we're outside the house, unless we're in a designated area where dogs can be off-leash. While waiting for the elevator, it arrived, and there were two people inside, a female aged 15 to 20 and another female aged 20 to 25. When the elevator doors opened, my dog attempted to enter, but the younger woman inside started shrieking, loudly expressing her fear of dogs. I calmly informed her that the elevator was for everyone, including dogs, and we both stepped inside. As a courtesy, I kept my dog on a very short leash, positioning her behind my legs at the opposite end of the elevator. However, the passenger continued yelling, insisting that we leave. I responded by saying she could take the next elevator if she didn't want to ride with a dog. Despite her protests, she chose to stay, and we had an uneventful 20-second journey to the ground floor. At no point did she mention being allergic to dogs, which might have warranted me taking a different elevator. Upon exiting, she made several comments, some quite rude, but I ignored her and proceeded to my car. I wonder if I was under any obligation to accommodate her by taking another elevator. I understand the analogy of the sword, meaning if it were another situation, I would have waited. However, in this case, it wasn't about my appearance. It was about my dog, whom I consider part of my family. I find it difficult to accept discrimination against my dog, just as I would against any family member. Am I in the wrong here? Should I have chosen to wait for the next elevator? I appreciate the feedback, even the critical ones. I posted this to learn, grow, and be better. I acknowledge my oversight, and I understand now that it wouldn't have cost me anything to wait for the next elevator. I will make that choice in similar situations in the future. Additional context: my dog was behind my legs, pressed against the elevator wall. The other passenger could have easily exited if they had wished. I want to clarify that I did not corner her, as some have suggested. I was positioned between the other passenger and my dog was on a very short leash. On a related note, we are planning to visit my husband's mother's house for Thanksgiving. I brought up a month ago that we should time our visit differently because my 1-year-old son, whose birthday falls in February, needs a nap and already has issues with being at their house. My son doesn't particularly enjoy visiting their house for some reason, and he's quite resistant to being put down. However, we had a breakthrough in making plans for our Thanksgiving visit. He had a full nap right before we left for their house, which made him more receptive to being there. My mother-in-law and I decided that it would be best for everyone if we met up at their house around 5 in the evening. This way, my son could have a proper nap, eat when he got there, and feel more comfortable. My brother-in-law called her yesterday, and it seems she didn't relay the information to him about our plans for a later dinner. He mentioned that he was going to his girlfriend's mom's place at 6 and wanted to do dinner at noon. This caused my mother-in-law to call my husband, and she was visibly upset, even hyperventilating, apparently because my brother-in-law wanted to change the time and was asking my husband for approval. This is where our argument began. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband works full-time. I firmly believe that children up to 7 years old should have their naps because it's crucial for their development. I expressed my frustration to my husband, explaining that if I had known the time was going to change, I would have adjusted our son's sleep schedule. I didn't want to go there and have an upset child who missed his nap and wouldn't eat until 4. My husband's response was that our son would have to do things he doesn't want to in life. so it shouldn't matter if he doesn't get a proper nap. I became upset because I felt like he wasn't prioritizing our child's needs over dinner plans. I understand that I could be the one in the wrong here, but I don't see how it's fair to our son to skip his nap altogether. I just didn't understand why my husband wasn't putting our child's well-being first over dinner plans. I recognize that my child doesn't revolve around our schedule. Instead, we should adapt our schedule to meet his needs. I got upset because I couldn't comprehend why my husband wasn't putting our child's well-being first over dinner plans. I understand that I might be in the wrong here, but I don't see how it's fair to our son to skip his nap altogether. I'm torn, Reddit, so please let me know if I'm being unreasonable here. I'll gladly answer any questions to provide more clarity. Update. I've decided to give up the fight and just go when they say. Everyone else's happiness seems to matter more in this situation, and I've reached a point where I no longer care. When my husband came home, he immediately called his mom and vented his frustration about the sudden change in dinner time, emphasizing how absurd it was to cater to his older brother. He passionately expressed his annoyance for nearly 2 hours, highlighting his brother-in-law's disrespectful behavior, which we've grown to despise. Oh my goodness, everyone in this post is absolutely wild. I want to express my gratitude to all of you who truly understand the challenges of children's sleep schedules and the chaos that ensues when it's disrupted. We've decided to comply with the new time, although my husband informed his mother that we might not be able to eat much, as our son is likely to be upset, given the change in his routine. Luckily, he napped an extra hour today, so hopefully that might make things a bit easier, but who knows for sure. Additionally, I am thankful that my husband stood up for us. Initially, he brushed off the significance of our son missing his nap, saying, "Who cares?" just to pacify his mother. However, after reflecting on the situation during the rest of his shift, he came to his senses. Being the youngest in the family, he often feels overshadowed by his mother's preference for his older brothers. There's an ongoing struggle between the siblings, and my husband frequently feels disregarded. Regarding our son sleeping at their house, it's simply not an option. Unlike some children who can fall asleep anywhere, our son doesn't easily settle down. Unfortunately, my husband's family consists only of his mom, his 2 brothers, and his stepdad, with no cousins or extended family. It's a small family, which usually makes planning events ahead of time easier. We confirmed the dinner time with his mom on Sunday, and she admitted that the confusion was entirely her fault for not informing his brother about the set time. However, she has chosen to ignore my husband's inquiry about why she's prioritizing his brother's wishes over the previously agreed upon schedule. The older boys tend to use the tactic of threatening not to show up as leverage, and she believes my husband will follow suit and not attend at all. We've decided to stick with the changed dinner time, putting an end to our earlier disagreements. Yes, my husband has his flaws, just like anyone else, and I'm well aware of my own shortcomings. We make a conscious effort to acknowledge our issues and work on them as a united front, always striving to do what's best for each other. Holidays tend to be a bit challenging for both of us, creating stress and tension at an all-time high. He's been in this situation before and understands it, but the way we met is quite unconventional and wild. However, we genuinely love each other deeply. My husband works 6 days a week, putting in long hours of 9 to 10 hours a day to provide for our family and pay for the house we own. While I am the primary caregiver, he is also very present in our children's lives. Following dinner, as I was on my way home, words were exchanged about his dog's behavior as it kept taking food from my son's hands. I told my brother-in-law to back off, walked into the bathroom, and just as the door latched, I overheard him talking to everyone about me, mentioning that I had told him to back off regarding his dog. Frustrated, I stepped out of the bathroom and impulsively grabbed a handful of freshly carved turkey, which I threw straight at his face. My husband had to step in to calm us down, and then went to find his mom, who was likely hiding upstairs, possibly in tears. He eventually convinced me to return inside to finish dinner. with the condition that we drive 2 hours away on Monday to get Hawaiian food. I firmly believe that a child who hasn't had a nap can make dinner a challenging experience for everyone. Your mother-in-law knew and understood this, which is why she agreed to change the dinner time. If you go and your son misbehaves, make sure your husband and brother-in-law step up and deal with it. What are your thoughts on today's stories? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as it greatly supports the channel. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.
As a 26-year-old woman, I had always been inclined towards a more solitary existence. This inclination grew after my parents' divorce during my teenage years. They swiftly transitioned into new relationships, as if they were playing a game of house, leaving me feeling like an abandoned puzzle piece that no longer fit. In the blink of an eye, I transformed from their cherished daughter to an awkward guest at their joyous family gatherings. The isolation weighed on me more than words could express. However, I managed to construct a life of my own, distancing myself from their facade of harmony. I secured a job, found a small yet comfortable apartment, and even welcomed a feline companion into my life. Just when I thought I had successfully detached from their world of make-believe, my parents suddenly started reaching out, expressing a desire to reconnect. A part of me yearned to believe it was genuine, but when my father clumsily mentioned a significant inheritance from my wealthy grandparents during a phone call, a harsh truth dawned on me. Their newfound affection wasn't for me, it was for the potential windfall. My grandparents' fortune was substantial, but there was a catch. They believed in the unity of family. The stipulation was that the inheritance would only be distributed when the entire family gathered for the reading, which included me, the family outcast. If I were absent, my parents would be left without a penny from the million-dollar fortune. It became evident that their sudden desperation to bring me back into the fold was solely for their financial gain. They begged and pleaded for me to accompany them to my grandparents' house, attempting to guilt-trip me with stories of family bonds and nostalgic memories. Yet I saw through their insincere sentiments. All they desired was to secure their future luxury. It was a bitter realization that my parents viewed me as the key to their inheritance, and I grappled with a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a sense of vindication, all warring within me. I faced a choice. I could make them suffer for their manipulation, neglect, and insincerity, or I could swallow my pride, play along, and ensure they got what they wanted. It was a challenging decision, but then it struck me. I had a unique opportunity to turn the tables on them. They needed me, not the other way around. I could play their game, make them believe they had won, show up at the reading, and then at the last moment, ensure they left with nothing. It was a devious plan, no doubt, but it was the least they deserved for using me as a pawn in their grief-fueled game. So, I agreed to accompany them to my grandparents' house, playing the dutiful daughter and acting as if I were none the wiser to their scheme. But I had a trick up my sleeve. I wouldn't let them succeed, and I wouldn't allow them to profit off my compliance. I reached out to my grandparents' lawyer to gain a clear understanding of the precise conditions outlined in the will. The lawyer confirmed that the inheritance was undeniably conditional upon the entire family being present during the reading of the will. If I chose not to participate, the entire fortune would be donated to various charities. This revelation filled me with a sense of power, but it also stirred an annoying feeling of guilt within me. Yes, my parents had manipulated and neglected me, but the question lingered. Was it morally right for me to deprive them of their inheritance out of spite? I was torn, my emotions oscillating wildly between righteous indignation and guilt, back and forth. I couldn't help but think about my grandparents, who had always shown me kindness and love. They were traditionalists, longing for family unity, even if it had become a mere formality at this point. Would they have wanted me to use their will to settle scores? This question haunted my thoughts, keeping me awake for many nights. A part of me yearned to honor my grandparents' wish for family unity, even if it was just a facade. However, another part of me vehemently protested, refusing to be a pawn in my parents' grief-fueled game. During this period, my parents were oddly attentive, checking up on me, inquiring about my life, and even inviting me for meals at their homes with their new partners. It was evident that they were trying to win me over. Yet their efforts only fueled my resentment. It served as a harsh reminder of the love and attention they could have given me but chose not to until money entered the equation. My bitterness grew, and my determination to carry out my plan intensified. However, amidst my resolve, I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling of guilt. I found myself trapped in a moral dilemma where, regardless of my choice, I seemed destined to be the villain in someone's eyes. After my conversation with the lawyer and my increasing interactions with my parents, I found myself engulfed in a whirlwind of conflicted emotions. To help navigate through this turmoil, I made the decision to seek professional help and began attending therapy sessions. In these sessions, I discovered an outlet for my resentment, hurt, and confusion, hoping to find clarity and peace amidst the storm of conflicting emotions. I began to unravel the depth of my emotions and how they were shaping my choices, particularly during therapy sessions. It was in these sessions that the idea of having a genuine conversation with my parents surfaced. Despite my initial aversion to the notion, I couldn't ignore the possibility that it might provide me with some closure. In addition to therapy, I confided in my closest friend, Leela, who had been my unwavering support throughout this ordeal. She echoed my therapist's advice, suggesting that I give my parents an opportunity to explain themselves. With a mix of apprehension and courage, I decided to attend a family gathering at my father's place. The atmosphere was as strained as I had anticipated, with my parents, their partners, and me, a picture of superficial harmony that belied the underlying tension. Amidst the discomfort, I seized the chance to confront my parents honestly. I confronted them about their neglect, their opportunistic attempts at reconciliation, and their lack of genuine remorse or effort to repair our relationship. I had hoped for a heartfelt apology or some sign of genuine regret, but instead, I was met with awkward silence, defensive responses, and feeble attempts to shift the blame. It was disappointing, albeit unsurprising. This encounter solidified my conviction that their sudden interest in me was solely driven by the impending inheritance. While it stung, it also brought a sense of liberation. I no longer felt compelled to maintain the facade of a happy family for the sake of my grandparents' will. So here I am, Reddit, still at a crossroads but armed with a clearer understanding of my emotions and my parents' motives. My determination to prevent them from profiting off my presence has only intensified. However, I couldn't shake off the guilt of defying my grandparents' last wish to see their family together. I want to express my deep gratitude for your continued support, advice, and diverse perspectives, which have been invaluable in helping me navigate this incredibly challenging situation. The past few weeks have been an emotional roller coaster as I grappled with my feelings, confronted my parents, and wrestled with guilt and anger. In the end, I made a decision. I chose not to attend any more family gatherings. I simply couldn't endure the fake affection and underlying tension any longer. It wasn't worth the distress it was causing me. My decision effectively cut off my parents' access to the inheritance. Despite the tormenting guilt, I felt an odd sense of relief. After much contemplation, I decided to speak to my grandparents about the entire situation. I was anxious about their reaction, but I felt it was necessary. I owed them an explanation. I mustered the courage to visit my grandparents and lay bare the truth. I detailed my parents' sudden interest in reigniting our relationship, their transparent attempts to manipulate me, the confrontation, and ultimately, my decision. Surprisingly, my grandparents were remarkably understanding. They expressed their dismay at my parents' behavior, sincerely apologized for inadvertently causing me stress, and fully respected my choice. They voiced their pride in the person I had become, despite the challenges I had faced. Most importantly, they made it abundantly clear that they did not want their will to be a tool for manipulation or greed. In an unexpected twist, my grandparents chose to revise their will. They excluded my parents from the inheritance, opting instead to distribute it among various charities they had been supporting for years. They believed this was a better use of their wealth, avoiding further conflict and greed within the family. They expressed gratitude for my honesty and reassured me that their love for me was not contingent on the whims of a will. Their understanding and love overwhelmed me, lifting an immense burden off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free. I was no longer a pawn in my parents' game. I had broken free, and it was profoundly liberating. Upon sharing my decision with my parents, they were understandably furious, blaming me for their loss. A pang of guilt momentarily gripped me, but I swiftly brushed it off. I reminded myself that I was not responsible for their greed or their choices. Now, I am finally at peace. I managed to escape the toxic environment that had been suffocating me, and I am eagerly looking forward to moving on from this ordeal. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you on Reddit for being a part of my journey and helping me navigate this challenging situation. Your support and encouragement empowered me to stand up for myself in a situation where I was being used as a pawn for financial gain. It is truly commendable that I decided to talk to my grandparents about this matter. In the end, my grandparents chose to do what they felt was right. They donated their money to charity instead of allowing it to fuel the greed and ulterior motives of others. My parents were the ones who introduced deceit into the equation and ultimately paid the price for their actions. It's evident that you made sincere efforts to mend your relationship with your parents. You confronted them about your feelings, their behavior, and their lack of remorse, which confirmed their true intentions. You had every right to refuse to be a part of a charade, and your grandparents' understanding of the situation further validates your choice. It's truly unfortunate that your parents only showed interest in rekindling the relationship when money was involved. Their inability to offer a sincere apology when confronted speaks volumes. You took control of the situation, made a tough decision, and it's heartening to hear that your grandparents supported you. On another note, I'm a 27-year-old woman and soon to be married to the man I've been with for 6 years, Josh, a 29-year-old man. We've weathered various challenges together, strengthening our bond over time. We are both overjoyed about our impending marriage and the prospect of embarking on a new chapter in our lives together. I had chosen to take Josh's last name, a tradition in our society that resonates with me. Despite its lack of universal acceptance, I have always appreciated the idea of sharing a name with him and officially becoming a part of his family. I find comfort in the recognition of our unity. When I shared this decision with Josh, he was supportive and understanding, which only deepened my love and respect for him. His unwavering support reinforced my choice, giving me the confidence to embrace it fully. However, when I excitedly shared my decision with my friends and family, their reactions were unexpected. My fiercely independent and feminist mother expressed her disappointment, believing that I was setting a poor example for my younger sisters by seemingly surrendering my identity. My father, though more understanding, appeared concerned about the potential impact on my relationship with my mother and sisters. Even my friends, most of whom identify as feminists, reacted strongly. They accused me of perpetuating patriarchal norms and believed that by taking Josh's last name, I was sending a message that a woman needed a man to define her identity. I attempted to explain that this was my personal choice, a way to add to my identity rather than relinquish it. I emphasized that feminism was about choice and respecting others' decisions, even if they differed from their beliefs. Their negative reactions left me feeling guilty and uncertain about my decision. I started doubting myself, wondering if I was unknowingly participating in a patriarchal tradition. I found myself torn between my personal happiness and the fear of alienating those who mattered to me. Josh, too, was upset about their responses and offered to talk to them on my behalf. However, I felt it was something I needed to handle independently, despite my determination. Despite my conviction, I found myself feeling unheard and confused in the midst of conflicting opinions. Your overwhelming support and the invaluable advice you've provided have offered me a fresh perspective on my situation, for which I am genuinely grateful. I have always believed in open dialogue as a means to resolve issues, so taking some of your advice to heart, I decided to have a heart-to-heart conversation with my friends and family. I invited them over to our place, hoping that a comfortable and familiar environment would help ease the tension and encourage an open and respectful conversation. I prepared myself to truly listen to their perspectives and explain my viewpoint in a non-confrontational manner, hoping that we could reach a mutual understanding despite our differing opinions. When they arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. I attempted to break the ice with some light-hearted conversation, but it felt like walking on eggshells. Finally, I gathered my courage and broached the topic at hand. I conveyed how their initial reactions had hurt me, making me feel as though they were questioning my beliefs and principles. I emphasized that my choice to take Josh's last name was a deeply personal decision that did not compromise my commitment to feminism and gender equality. I requested that they respect my decision, just as I respected their diverse viewpoints. Their reactions were mixed. My mother appeared relieved that I didn't think she was doubting my beliefs. She clarified that her concern was for how society might perceive me, and she wished to shield me from potential prejudice. My sisters remained silent, listening but not expressing much. My friends, on the other hand, seemed somewhat taken aback. I don't think they anticipated me standing up to them like this. Despite the discomfort, I felt the conversation was necessary. I sensed a weight lifting off my chest, but then things took an unexpected turn. Lydia, one of my friends known for her strong feminist beliefs, took it upon herself to argue against my choice. She labeled it as regressive and accused me of conforming to societal norms. She insisted that if I were a true feminist, I would retain my maiden name as a symbol of rebellion against patriarchal norms. Her words stung, and I found myself wavering, questioning my beliefs and decisions. Was I, in fact, being regressive? Was I unconsciously trying to fit into societal norms? The self-doubt began creeping in again. The rest of the evening became a blur. I felt emotionally drained and exhausted. I excused myself and retreated to my room, leaving them to see themselves out. Josh was incredibly supportive, but I felt as though I had hit a wall. I began to contemplate whether I should reconsider my decision in order to maintain the peace. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your incredible support and thoughtful advice. It has been a guiding light during this challenging period. Following that uncomfortable confrontation, I spent a few days in introspection, attempting to navigate my thoughts and emotions. I found myself grappling with a constant question: was I compromising my principles? Was it wrong for me to want to take my future husband's name? I shared my concerns with Josh, and he, as always, was understanding. He reassured me of his unwavering support, regardless of the decision I made. To gain clarity and a broader perspective, I decided to seek professional help. I scheduled an appointment with a counselor, hoping it would provide the clarity I needed. The counseling session proved to be enlightening. We delved into my feelings, guilt, conflict, and doubts. The counselor helped me realize that the essence of feminism lies in choice, the freedom to be who you want to be and do what makes you happy, free from societal norms. She emphasized that my decision to take Josh's last name was not a submission to a patriarchal society. Instead, it was a personal choice that brought me genuine joy. Her words resonated deeply with me, instilling a renewed sense of clarity and confidence. I understood that I wasn't relinquishing my identity. I was choosing to enrich it. Taking Josh's last name symbolized our unity and commitment, a choice that was empowering and deeply meaningful. Feeling assured about my decision, I shared this newfound clarity with Josh. He was relieved and glad that I had found peace amidst the chaos. With his unwavering support, I knew I had all I needed. However, I remained concerned about my friends and family, especially my mother and sisters. I didn't want this issue to strain our relationships, so I decided to write them a letter, expressing my thoughts and feelings, hoping they would understand. After days of reflection and internal debate, I made a definitive decision. I chose to take Josh's last name, as we had planned. I felt a newfound conviction that this decision was right for me. It didn't diminish my identity or beliefs. Instead, it reaffirmed my right to make personal choices and live life on my terms. I felt like I had reclaimed a part of myself that had been lost in the midst of the conflict. Determined not to let others' opinions sway me from my chosen path, I penned down a heartfelt letter to my friends and family. In it, I poured out my thoughts and emotions, explaining why I had chosen to take Josh's last name and how it in no way diminished my standing as a feminist or independent woman. I expressed my love and respect for my friends and family, hoping they could find it in their hearts to respect my decision. After sending out the letters, I waited with bated breath for their responses. It took a few days, but the responses started trickling in. My mom was the first to call. Her voice was choked up as she apologized for not understanding my perspective sooner. She acknowledged her mistake in questioning my choice and promised to support me moving forward. My sisters followed suit, offering their apologies and support. However, Lydia, the friend who had been most vocally opposed to my decision, didn't reach out. On the other hand, a few of my other friends did, apologizing for not understanding my point of view earlier. Their responses were a relief. While there were still some unresolved issues, it seemed like my relationships would mend with time. The overall tone was understanding and apologetic, and I felt reassured that I wasn't losing my friends or family over this issue. This experience taught me that personal decisions can have far-reaching implications. However, at the end of the day, it's essential to stay true to ourselves and our beliefs. I am thankful to all of you who stood by me, giving advice, sharing your experiences, and offering words of encouragement. I know the road ahead may still have a few bumps, but I am prepared to face them. I've learned that while it's crucial to value and consider the opinions of those we love, we must not let them overshadow our personal truth. As a staunch feminist, I wholeheartedly believe in the power of personal choice, and that's what feminism is all about. Our identities are not defined by our names, but by who we are and what we stand for. By standing up for my personal choice, I've demonstrated my belief in personal freedom and empowerment, which is a strong feminist statement in itself. I won't let anyone make me believe otherwise. I handled this situation with grace and strength, and I admire myself for it. This situation was undoubtedly tough. It's clear I value my relationships and didn't want to hurt my loved ones, but it's equally important to respect my choices. Relationships should not be contingent on making decisions that align with others' views all the time. True feminism promotes choice, and I have every right to make decisions that bring me happiness. I'm glad I found clarity and stood up for myself. It took courage to do what I did, and I respect myself for it. I am not alone, and I appreciate all the support I received. Thank you all for tuning in to today's stories. If you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, please email us at the address provided in the description. If you'd like to be featured, let us know, and we'll pin your comment at the top. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support truly helps the channel. See you in the next one.